Welcome, America, to AmendmentOneRadio.com, where your First Amendment rights are still safe to say what's on your mind.
Hey, good afternoon. I would say it's much later than that now. It's 10 p.m., so Catherine K. Guns is a little bit late, but she's here. I have 15 years of experience handling firearms, 2 years as a firearms dealer, and then one day I took a concealed weapons permit class, and I learned more in that 3.5 hours than I did in all the years that I've been handling firearms. Then I stepped it up a bit, and I became a firearms instructor. I'm currently a range officer, and I enjoy teaching and learning every day. Unfortunately, today I had to pull a double between all the 3 jobs that I have, and so this is how it ends up at a 10 p.m. night show. What I wanted to say is this show, Firearms Talk, is proudly brought to you by the Talkwad Radio Network, so Talkwad Network. So please check out our other shows with Talkwad Network at www.talkwad.com. So that's www.talkwad.com. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Nerdorama. That's with Adam Krakowias. He's the host of Nerdorama, and that show is on Sundays at 11 p.m. at nerdcoreradio.com. My guest tonight is Gerald Markham, who has been with my show many a night, probably almost every one of them. So, how'd your weekend go, man?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I heard your show was quite interesting tonight.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I was sitting there trying to teach people on how to impeach a president.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of people are feeling like that since we had our talk today. And then, so all of this, I guess, happened yesterday while I was at work, and then I got home, rushed, and me and Gerald were talking on the phone, trying to put everything together. There's a lot of things going on, and so I wanted to read what I did find that I did fact check, and I found, and then there was a lot of news on last night also talking about what NRA had to say too, and so there's a lot of controversy against people against us now. But you know, this is where we come down and we talk about our government kind of twisting and saying things the way they want to say it, and anybody who's real actually does know the truth.
Yeah, because you know it's pretty sad that they want to sit there and keep attacking on the gun issues and stuff and misusing all the information, because it was more on the mentally handicapped situation is why the guns were used. And then the worst thing about it is you got a president that wants to sit there and use kids as prop them up as propaganda for his gun laws, to sit there and say, okay, well, look, these poor little kids, I'm going to make sure they're all safe. But yeah, you don't want to go in there and spend no money on putting armed guards around the schools, which, now you're starting to change your tune on that. But isn't it awfully funny how your 2 daughters have armed guards around them at all times?
Yeah, I saw a lot of that on when I Googled it yesterday, so it's a huge controversy. Hey, this isn't a matter of taking people's gun rights away to take the crime off the streets, because the people that have the guns are the good guys, and I just don't really believe in disarming the good people. So I wanted to read what I found, which was Obama unveils a $500 million gun violence package in Washington without waiting for Congress. President Barack Obama on Wednesday announced a sweeping $500 million program to curb gun violence, setting up a fight that over universal background checks, bans on military assault weapons, and high-capacity ammunition magazines in the wake of the Connecticut shooting. So I'm actually having Adam, who is also our techie. He's pulling up some of what the NRA had to say, and as soon as that pulls up, I'd like to play that for you, because this was all over the news yesterday, and the news broadcasters were saying, "Oh, he's gone too far." So I was quite shocked about it. So I wanted to see for myself. And honestly, you know what? I don't think he went too far, because you got to break it down and think about what he's trying to say here. He's not really hitting a political view on it. In a sense, the way that I interpreted it is he was saying, hey, let's protect our children. That's the dealio. Because listen, let's say they banned all the guns. That's not going to stop the bad guy from getting the attention that he wants from attacking large groups of people. And he'll find another way to do it, whether it be a bomb or, you know what, bad guys can still get guns.
Yeah, they can still use cars, and they make a hell of a weapon.
Yeah, so now that it's up, let me see if I can actually mouse over and click on it, unless I can get Adam to do it. Can you? My mouse is I'm mouseless? Can you says right there where America Speaks. Click on it. This is on the NRA website.
How have our nation's priorities gotten so far out of order? Think about it. We care about our money, so we protect our banks with armed guards. We care about our president, so we protect him with armed Secret Service agents. Members of Congress work in offices surrounded by Capitol Police officers. Yet when it comes to our most beloved and vulnerable members of the American family, our children, we as a society leave them utterly defenseless. They're our responsibility, and it's not just our duty to protect them, it's our right to protect them. The only way to stop a monster from killing our kids is to be personally involved and invested in a plan of absolute protection.
The National Rifle Association came out swinging, defiant, paranoid, and utterly tone deaf.
The National Rifle Association has been getting a lot of flack lately for advocating more armed guards in schools.
The brilliant idea these lunatics had is, let's put more guns in schools. Wow, you got me on that one.
We ought to start checking the birth certificates of these NRA people because they cannot possibly have been born in this universe.
I think today the NRA planted a flag on Planet Bizarro.
What he said today was laughable.
He should be ashamed of himself.
He sounds as if he's tone deaf.
This guy is whacked. Wayne LaPierre should resign.
I think Wayne LaPierre today is out of step with America.
They serve no purpose. These guys are nuts.
Evil. That's the word that just kept popping up in my mind.
This is a simple idea from a simple guy that we need not to spend any time talking about.
There's no research that says that putting more firearms in the hands of trained or untrained professionals in a shootout is going to make anybody who's sitting around safer.
You, sir, are in the head.
You know what I want to say on that. But,
If it's crazy to call for putting police and armed security in our school to protect our children, then call me crazy.
The media speaks for elites. America speaks for itself.
And you remember when Wayne LaPierre came out and suggested that, he was scoffed at. I mean, in the media, people said, oh my gosh, that was their brilliant idea, and then this is all they came up with? The NRA was criticized, but now the White House is being pressed by lawmakers to possibly do just that.
They have faced what I've called the post-Newtown witch hunt over the last week. It's rather unfortunate.
Should we have an armed guard at every school in the country? That's what the NRA believes. They told me last week that that could work.
You know, I am skeptical that the only answer is putting more guns in schools.
Armed guards good enough for David Gregory's kids' school, not for the rest of us. School Obama's daughters attend has 11 armed guards.
Experts estimate that as many as 1/3 of the nation's schools already have armed officers.
The superintendent said she aims to hire 130 armed security guards and put them in every Hillsborough County elementary school.
Along with their principals welcoming students back to school, so was the LAPD.
I think it makes all of the parents really proud, and it makes the parents feel really safe.
For 35 years, Oro Valley police officers have been on school campuses.
There is no delay in response in reference to any crime that might be going on, and they're also trained, as are all of our patrolmen, in active shooter training and drills.
I spoke to a few people in the community today to find out how they felt about the NRA's proposal. One woman says knowing her 6-year-old sister would have protection helps her sleep better at night.
Senator Barbara Boxer of California says that, in fact, that is something she has suggested to the vice president.
America agrees with Wayne and the NRA. Barack Obama won't have two sets of rules. Armed guards for his rich friends in their elite schools, restrictions in gun-free zones for ours.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
It's pretty powerful, wasn't it?
Definitely.
And I loved every second of it.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's 100% true. And, you know, and the biggest thing that I can sit there and tell people is, hey, take that $35, $50, whatever it costs to join the NRA. And you know something, get your ass out there and join as fast as you can, because these are the only guys that are sitting there trying to help you keep your gun rights.
So if you guys want to view that, plus they also have a really neat thing on there called Fact Checker. So everything that this news media has been saying and our government's been saying, you can fact check it. And they have statistics on gun violence and all kinds of things that were really interesting. And that's on NRA.org, so NRA.org. Man, there's some really good things on there. I must have spent all the way up till about 2 o'clock in the morning watching it. I was pretty impressed with what they had to say. So, Obama also used all his presidential powers to issue 23 orders that don't require congressional approval. Largely incremental to executive steps include requiring federal agencies to make more data available for background checks, appointing full-time directors in the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosive, and directing the Centers for Disease Control to research gun violence. But the president, speaking at the White House, acknowledged that the most effective actions must be taken by the lawmakers. To make a real lasting difference, Congress must act, Obama said, and Congress must act soon. Obama, let me see, I skipped a little too far ahead. It jumped on me. So Obama was flanked by children who wrote him letters about gun violence in the weeks following the Newton, Connecticut shooting, and families of the 20 children killed in the massacre, as well as survivors, also were in the audience along with law enforcement officers and members of Congress. This is our first task to ask as a society to keep our children safe, Obama said, and this is how we will be judged. The president based his proposals on recommendations from an administration-wide task force from and Vice President Joe Biden. I watched C-SPAN, I believe it was Wednesday, and or it could have been, yeah, it was Wednesday night, or actually maybe Tuesday. C-SPAN had this college that are supposed to be of academic level that claimed that they had done a survey and that it was a nationwide survey and said that about 75% of Americans are for this gun control. Well, who took that survey? I never got an email or any kind of information asking me what my opinion was on it. I have over 200 friends on my Facebook, and then it's connected to a wider span that are in the thousands. And none of them knew anything about this survey either.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening is the media is sitting there, and they're pretty much working their own numbers. They want to sit there and keep the mass hysteria going and make Obama just sit there and keep looking better because they got to keep propping those kids up. And, it's like, oh, my God, we got to make sure the kids are safe. Well, not every one of us are in a political arena there of life, so we don't get armed guards that actually are supposed to keep an eye on our kids. We actually have to go out there and take care of them ourselves.
Well, in fact, in one of those meetings that I was watching on C-SPAN, even a couple of law enforcement officers got up there and said, one of them said that while he's away at work, he's working the beat, and he has to carry an AR-15 with him, and he's got his guns with him, and he would like his wife, who's home alone, to have the same rights to protect herself. So, I mean, you got a law enforcement saying that, officer saying that he wants his wife to be able to protect himself against violence. So he knows of the kind of violence that's out there. And then another cop stood up there and said something that struck me really good, too, that, the cops are nothing more than the cleanup crew. He just flat out said that. He said, it's up to the Americans to protect themselves against any kind of a situation. And, and they never speak of on the media how shootings where or massacres that were thwarted or stopped before it occurred. And it happens all the time. Now, I try to do fact checking and I get on the internet. Not everything they say is true on the internet, but I try to cross-reference the best that I can. And they just don't, speak of it. But you get in the newspapers and you find those tiny little articles, and I've mentioned many of them on my show, like the goofball Kool-Aid that robbed that one lady. I mean, that article was probably about 30 words long. They just didn't make a big deal out of it. And the gun range that I work at, they were on the front page of the newspaper today, so that'll give you a hint of now where I work at. So a lot of big deals going on,
Yeah, because it was pretty interesting when you talk about the one sheriff that talked about his family having an AR-15, because there was another story. It might have even been him. I'm not sure, but I heard it tonight on Hannity, where the main sheriff, he had taught his 15-year-old son how to use an AR-15. And during that time, his house was broken into and a bunch of stuff was stolen. And that's when he sit there and taught his son how to sit there and use this AR-15. 6 months later, apparently the same two come back. He was working at night, and then the next thing you know, he's there with his 6-year-old sister, and his mother's asleep upstairs. So the first thing he does is he goes straight into the gun cabinet, unlocks the gun cabinet, puts a clip in it, pulls it back, goes to the top of the staircase, and tells them, "Hey, look, we need you to sit there and leave now." And apparently they didn't do it. So when they started to come up the stairs, he opened fired. So, and he sit there and shot everything down there until there was nothing else moving. One of them managed to run out of the house. The other one was hit in the side of the jaw and in his hip, so he was down on the ground. And the only good thing out of it was the fact that he did save his family's life. He did take care of his house and stand his ground with what his father had taught him how to do. Not to mention that these were the same guys that were robbing the entire neighborhood. And guess what? Out of, I think it's been about like 10 years now, there hasn't been another robbery in that area. These guys were both in jail. And, you know, when the one gets out of jail, guess what? He's going to talk a little bit funny and he walks with a limp. But if it wouldn't have been for that fact of that kid having that AR-15 knowledge and knowing what it could do, then, you know, he might not have made the right choice in not knowing how to use it or anything to that effect. And what if this gun ban here would have been in effect 15 years ago? And then this poor kid, what would he protected his house with? Somebody goes out there and shoots a 2-shot clip or 3-shot clip.
Well, the media would have grabbed a hold of it had it been reversed and said, you know, see, they gained access to the guns. Because I can guarantee you, if they were planning to rob his house, they would have found his guns if they would have tried to do any kind of way to defend themselves. And it's proven in psychology that people that are habitual criminal offenders do escalate.
Yep.
And so let's say that they broke into the house, they found the guns, and then they decided to shoot all the witnesses. And then it would have been a horrible thing. Oh, you know, they got access to the guns. That's how the media is twisting the things, and it makes me sick. And a lot of people that are really close friends with me, and I probably won't reveal it on the air, but I'll give the hint to it that I ended up in a situation where I wish things had been different. If I had access to a gun, things would have been very different.
Yeah.
The following list is provided by the White House of the executive actions of President Obama plans to take address to gun violence. Number 1, an issue of a presidential memorandum to require federal agencies to make relevant data available to the federal background check system. I'm kind of in agreement with it in a sense. I think that it should be, because when I do 4473s and background checks, sometimes they have to delay and it takes a little longer. So I don't mind to have that information readily available. It actually would help speed up the process in a sense. But that's the way they word it to make it sound like it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's not always going to be a good thing for people out there. Let's hope that our government doesn't abuse that power. And then number 2, address unnecessary legal barriers, particularly relating to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, that may prevent states from making information available to the background check system. Number 3, improving incentives for states to share information with the background check system. Number 4, direct the Attorney General to review categories of individuals prohibiting them from having a gun to make sure that dangerous people are not slipping through the cracks. And then, see, I'm not hitting the arrow button. Haha, very funny. You guys got to remember, I'm computer dumbfounded. So we were on number 4, weren't we? And then we so number 4 would direct the Attorney General to review categories of individuals prohibited from having guns to make sure that dangerous people are not slipping through the cracks.
Yeah. Now here's the thing on that though. Because what it's coming into is your doctors, your medical doctors are going to have surveys now that when you go into their office, they're going to ask you if you have guns. Let's just suppose that this doctor was somebody that you knew that did not like you at one particular point in time. He can sit there and say, well, you know something? Hey, this guy's unstable. And the next thing you know, you're getting knock, knock, knock on your door, and you've got the ATF or somebody like that, your sheriff's department, coming in and saying, you're unstable to have your guns. We're here to collect all your guns.
Yeah, what a mess, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just it's like that over in England in another sense, and I know it's in here because I read it. I read this whole list already. Most people can't even pass a background check now.
No.
They just
No. Well, that seemed like they're really hitting bad on military personnel getting out of the military that are coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff. And it's just like, what do you tell these guys? They went over there and, fought their asses off for our country and stuff. And now you're going to sit there and say, well, we don't think you're stable enough. We're not going to let you have a gun. Really? So, that's like I said there and told people on my show that when it comes down to it, and I got to go to a doctor and they say, well, do you have guns? I'm going to put on there, I plead the fifth. That's part of my constitutional rights. And if you don't like that, kiss my ass. I can walk out of here. So
now I understand that there are a lot of them that come back mentally messed up and perhaps need the therapy that they were also promised to be getting too. It's called post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yeah.
We all know what that is.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make the good guys look bad. So, number 5, propose a rulemaking to give law enforcement the ability to run a full background check on an individual before returning a seized gun. News update, in Florida, they actually already do that. So, I'm not sure if they don't do it in every state, but usually if they confiscate a gun in a domestic violent situation, you actually have to go to court to request your firearms back. And then you have to fill out another 4473 or whatever form. I'm pretty sure, I think it is a 4473, which requires a background check to get your firearms. Yeah. Publish a letter from the ATF to federally licensed gun dealers providing guidance on how to run background checks for the private sellers. I actually do kind of like that one. There is a little bit of a loophole, and I don't know how they're going to twist it. I'm sure they are. But I do like the fact, I did like private gun sales for a long, long time, except for that there are some cracks there because they're more into it for making the money. They're not taking the time to be responsible, to take that guy's driver's license information, ask them a little bit about why they're purchasing a gun. Because nowadays, there are more gun stores in the state of Florida. There's just about one on every 5 blocks or so, I would say. At least in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're avoiding a gun store to buy a private deal, it's usually because the gun is a really good deal, and I get that one. It may be a good price or buying it off a friend. But then the other bad side to it is usually it's because they cannot obtain a gun to begin with.
Yep.
And so that one little step being missed could cost, it costs the good guys, it's just bad. So.
There's still one loophole that they haven't touched on yet. And that way, and I'll tell people right now, the biggest loophole you got going on right now is a gun trust. Get out, get your gun trust, get that thing filed ASAP. And let me tell you something. You get to still have your AR-15s and all the stuff you wanted to do. So, let's see what they got to say about that one until they close the loophole on that.
Oh, I'm sure they will. There's no doubt about it on that. So, alrighty. So then, let me see. Publish a letter. And number 6, publish a letter from the ATF to federally licensed gun dealers providing guidance on. Oh, okay. I already read that one, guys. I'm sorry. I'm repeating myself a little bit. So number 7, launch a national safe and responsible gun ownership campaign. Well, that's kind of what the NRA does.
Yeah, they do that all the time anyway.
We have just about a class for every kind of situation that we can come up with for people to train in.
Yeah.
And
I mean, their theory has been for over the past 20 years, and you can see it on every commercial. Guns don't kill people; people kill people.
And they'll find a way to do it, whether it be a gun, a car, bomb,
baseball bat.
Right. Number 8, review safety standards for gun locks and gun safes. Consumer Product Safety Commission. Anybody that went through the ordeal that everybody had to go through just to get their concealed weapons permit should already do this.
Yeah.
And I do like that. Number 9, issue a presidential memorandum to require federal law enforcement to trace guns recovered from in criminal investigations.
That's already in effect. I mean, because if you look at it, look at New York, your best example. How many times have you sit there and heard about New York crimes being committed with guns that were already taken care of, that traced back to other crimes? So, and that's just for the people. Now, if you want to hear the really bad part about it, it says there on the part that says issue a presidential memorandum. This is what really makes me laugh. Let's talk about the guns that made it down to Mexico for the drug dealers that were issued from the United States government to help all these so-called people in a better situation. How many of those guns made it back to the United States that killed people, but we don't hear about that?
Yeah. Oh my God. In fact, it is on NRA's website under Fact Checker. They've done the research on it, and it's quite shocking. So I urge people to go ahead, stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning and watch all that stuff if you want, or pick a night to watch it. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, because, I mean, this thing goes way back. I mean, if you really want to see something interesting, look up Ollie North and the Iran-Contra scandal.
Okay. Wow. That is a good one. Number 10, release a DOJ. So it's release a DOJ report analyzing information on lost or stolen guns to make it widely available to law enforcement. In fact, I did read an article somewhere that had mentioned that they are even considering fining those that have a delay in reporting the firearm stolen or lost. So I think they have to do within something. They're talking about doing it within a 24 to 72 hour time frame, and then that if they don't report it within that time frame, that is something like a $10,000 fine. So not only that, have they been victimized by being robbed, and if they don't report it in time, they're being victimized again.
No.
I can kind of see both sides of it, because you are responsible for your firearms. But what if, the circumstances that you're in the hospital or something, this happened and you didn't make the right time frame? They're not going to make exceptions to it.
No.
They're just not. So number 11, nominate an ATF director.
This thing, I thought we already had one.
I kind of did too. But you guys gotta. They're making it look like it's these things are really fabulous and good, but there is some hidden agenda in here. I've never done conspiracy theories, and I'm usually not into that. But I'm trying to read a little bit in between the lines of why some of these simple statements are in here, and then some other ones are worded in such a way that it leaves it open. Basically, what it should be done, and I agree with NRA, I think we need to protect those. Listen, when 9/11 happened, god awful, okay? But didn't they start doing armed guards, and this is where Homeland Security came from, okay? And then you got your stadiums. They do their pat-downs. You can't even go in there with a frickin' cigarette lighter.
Yep.
Why can't they apply the same purpose to that? And here was the other thing another cop had said that I absolutely loved. He said, this is another big thing. We don't give media press to the bad guys, because every bad guy is trying to outdo the other one with, I can do better than that. Okay?
Yep.
And we give them life.
Yep.
Just give them life. You commit a gun crime, you get life.
Yep.
I like that. So, provide law enforcement and first responders and school officials with the proper training for active shooter situations. Number 13, maximize enforcement efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crime. Number 14, issue a presidential memorandum directing the Centers for Disease Control to research the causes of prevention of gun violence.
Yeah, real quick, back on number 13.
Back on 13, okay.
Yeah. You know what really makes me laugh about this one right here is sits there and, it sits there and says to prosecute gun crime. How many times have we sit there, especially in Tampa, and I'll give you your best example because the man was already, he's in prison as it is now for killing 2 police officers. This man had been arrested, I think it was like 28 times. I believe his name was Dante Morris, if I am mistaken. It says prosecute gun crime. How do you prosecute people when you sit there and they keep making deals with the state's attorneys to sit there and say, oh, it's okay, we'll slap you on the wrist, and then finally when somebody gets killed over it or, badly beaten, and in this particular case, there was many people that were badly beaten. You've got 2 law enforcement officers that are dead, and, we're supposed to sit there and say maximum enforcement. No, I'm sorry, folks. You know something? I love Grady Judd in Lakeland, and his maximum enforcement theory is this. When you're out of bullets, the crime's finished.
Number 15, direct the Attorney General to issue a report to on the availability of most effective use of new gun safety technologies and challenge the private sector to develop innovative technologies. 16, clarify the Affordable Care Act that does not prohibit doctors from asking patients about guns in their homes. And didn't go along with that statement that you just made earlier.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, folks, just remember this. When your doctor asks you, you have the constitutional right to sit there and say, I plead the fifth. Have a nice day.
What do guns have to do with your health other than, I guess what they're trying to think of is probing into, is this guy mentally stable and does he have a gun?
Yeah.
I kind of get it on both sides. But
well, here's the worst part about it. A doctor takes a Hippocratic oath for the privacy of his patient. When you do this, you just break that oath. You just break that privacy. So now, do you put it in a position to where now you can sue the doctor for invasion of your privacy?
Well, that's why they're trying to make a policy to get in there and all that they're allowed to do it. Everybody has a bad day. So I don't necessarily agree with that in a sense of if you're having a bad day, that doesn't mean I have bad days. That doesn't mean I'm going to go out and do a massacre.
Yeah, really.
This is going to be a lot tougher. The way they're doing this, all they're doing is taking more and more of our rights away, and it's still not going to stop the crime. It's just
not. No, because it's just like the old joke. Hey, if you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns.
Right. So number 16, clarify. Oh, that's the one I just read. Sorry, guys. Number 17, release a letter to the healthcare providers clarifying that no federal law prohibits them from reporting threats of violence to law enforcement authorities.
They already do that.
Yeah. Number 18, provide incentives for schools to hire school resource officers. That's your SROs.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are already there.
Yeah. So
why don't we just get snipers and put them on top of the buildings too?
Yeah.
That'll fix that rascal, that wascally wabbit.
Number 19, develop model emergency response plans for schools, house of worship, and institutions for higher education.
Houses of worship. Damn, there's that religion factor coming into this church and state.
Yeah. Wow. Number 20, release a letter to the state health officials clarifying the scope of mental health services to that Medicaid plans that must cover.
There you go. That's kind of a weird statement because of the simple fact that it ties into your Medicaid plans. So there's something underlying that I'm sure that's going to be brought into that situation that's going to be tied into like making paid more money into Medicare or Medicaid that we're going to pay for.
Yeah, there's something up with that. 21, finalize regulations clarifying essential health benefits and parity requirements with the ACA exchanges. Number 22, comment to finalizing mental health parity regulations.
Well, I tell you what, it's really nice to see that they want to go in there and put all these laws against guns, and there's actually some of them that are stating about the mental health issues. Why don't we go in there and put more efforts towards the mental health issues than the guns?
Number 23, launch a national dialogue led by Secretaries Sebulus and Duncan on mental health.
Well, I wonder what they got paid.
Yeah, so those are those 23 that we just read through. So the NRA's response to President Obama's gun control proposals. Throughout the history, National Rifle Association has led efforts to promote safety and responsibility of gun ownership. Keeping our children and society safe remains our top priority. NRA will continue to focus on keeping our children safe, securing our schools, fixing our broken and mental health systems, and I've mentioned that a million times, and prosecuting violent crimes to the fullest extent of the law. We look forward to working with the Congress on a bipartisan basis to find real solutions to protecting America's most valuable assets, our children.
Yep.
Isn't that beautiful? So it's simple yet beautiful. Attacking firearms and ignoring children is not the solution to the crisis we find in our nation. Only honest, law-abiding gun owners will be affected, and our children will remain vulnerable in the inevitable of more tragedy. Today, Cook County commissioners trotted out the latest in a series of affronts to law-abiding gun owners. and an ordinance that does not even attempt to go after the criminal, but literally it makes the victims of crimes pay. The proposed ordinance, sponsored by County Commissioners Tony Preckwinkle, Jesus Garcia, John P. Daly, Edwin Reyes, and Larry Sefferdin, says that after this is what I mentioned earlier. It says after 48 hours of a firearm that should have been known to be either lost or stolen, the victim of the gun theft is in violation. If the theft of a firearm is not reported to Cook County and local law enforcement entities that are not notified within the arbitrary period of time, the law-abiding gun owners will have to pay a fine ranging from $1,000 to $2,000. I guess I misquoted that, but that's still high. On top of being robbed already. This penalty would apply not only to the residents of Cook County wherever the loss of destruction took place, but to any person who owns or possesses a firearm and resides outside of Cook County who loses, destroys, transfers, or is robbed of the firearm in Cook County. Furthermore, the mandatory reporting requirements have nothing at all to do with the actual circumstances of the loss, but instead focuses on gathering information on the gun owner. And law enforcement officials not even attempt to investigate the crime or recover the stolen property, but it's just penalized as the victim again. The police should be focused on locating the criminal and penalizing the person that is responsible for it. Nothing in this ordinance even speaks of the idea of locating the perpetrator of the theft, but only the one more attack on the entire body of law-abiding and innocent just because politicians disagree with the exercise of our civil liberty and the lawful firearm ownership. This ordinance clearly does not even attempt to stop crime and adds insult to injury. Do county politicians actually think that gun owners want to have their firearms lost or stolen, or even deliberately avoid reporting it? This ordinance will be considered in the upcoming weeks, and your NRA ILL will keep you updated on this matter. It is important that you contact your Cook County commissioners immediately and tell them to oppose this proposed ordinance that will have no effect on crime, but it would only further punish the already victimized individuals. I know where I pulled this. I pulled this right off the NRA site, and I wanted to read it.
No.
Just unbelievable, some of the things that are going on out there.
Yeah, I definitely have to say, if you live in Cook County, folks, and this applies to you, make sure one thing, somebody breaks in your house, make sure you fix it to where they don't get out except in a body bag.
Yeah, just unbelievable the things are going on. So you actually, when we were talking on the phone, had some things that you wanted to state that I know that you had mentioned in your show earlier today, and you're more than welcome to share them on my show as well. It had to do with making a call out to your state attorney and to the.
Yeah, definitely. You know, American people have sit there and got to get off their keisters and get up in arms, so to speak. Not literally, but, you know, and as far as being able to voice your opinions. Because actually what you need to do is get a hold of your state attorney. You need to get a hold of your House of Representatives. You need to get a hold of your Congress members. Email them, fax them, blow them up on the phones, blow them up on and I don't mean like bomb blow them up. I mean blow them up by, let's make about 10,000 calls in an hour. And, you know, let's flood their fax machines. Let's flood their emails and let them know that, hey, guys, guess what? The Constitution of the United States is for the American people. It is not to be sidestepped by these moron idiot politicians that want to sit there and keep thinking that we can do as we please, and we'll make sure that our families are secure, that our families have, life policies that are taken care of as far as insurance-wise, benefits-wise, retirement packages, and even the fact that they just passed a law here about a week ago to where insider trading is legal amongst the politicians. So, this is the kind of stuff how you wonder how a politician goes into office making about 130, 140, maybe even 160, $1,000 a year. And after 8 years, they come out $25-50 million. Well, guess what? They have an inside source that helps them expand their cash flow. Now, if we do it, we go to prison. I'm sorry, folks. I put my pants on the same way that these asshole politicians that disregard the Constitution. Now, don't get me wrong, not all these politicians are bad, but they just have a bad way of going about doing things. And what really gets me is the fact that the American people will sit there and let these people come in there with a bill at the last minute, within 3 minutes and 30 minutes of it supposed to be signed. And these so-called elected officials that are looking out for the American people do not even read what is in these bills, and they sign them. And guess what? That's how you got the Patriot Act. That's how you got Obamacare. How you feeling now, folks? How's your hope and change?
And it's so sad because I liked what our guest had to say last week about wanting everybody to, walk right there out there on the lawn of the White House. But the problem is they've already did is they've choked people out so bad. I heard on the news today, it was sad to hear Sweet Bay in Florida. Most of the chain is shutting down, so that's just that many more people losing their jobs.
Yeah, there are like 22 stores shutting down in the Bay Area.
Yeah, 22. Unbelievable. So, most people can't even make it paycheck to paycheck. So just losing that little lifeline right there is just going to put that much more people, not being able to do that. So I feel him on that. We were talking that yesterday, but we got to make an effort, at least a phone call, letter writing, get out there and start doing it. Memberships to the NRA, it just, make it happen.
Yeah, well, that's like even earlier on my show today, I sit there and touch base on the fact that we have a lawsuit that's going on in Tampa amongst two DJs. And you've got one is MJ, Todd Schnitt, and let's see, also Bubba the Love Sponge. The thing about it is it's really one hell of a frivolous lawsuit. It's a joke to, the First Amendment of freedom of speech. It used to be that, hey, sticks and stones, break your bones, names will never hurt you, and nobody gave a rat's ass. Well, see, here's the problem with this. As frivolous as this is, if it comes out to where this lawsuit is actually won by MJ, then we have a new infringement on your First Amendment right that will go from not only from Central Florida, this thing can affect every bit of your First Amendment rights all the way through every part of the United States. So in other words, if you go out there and you're talking to your friends and you go out there and you call them a prick or anything like that, and if it's in public and people hear it, you can be sued for slander and defamation. And if you lose, guess what? Last I heard, I have the freedom of speech on my First Amendment right, with the exception of the FCC rules on terrestrial radio. So, if I want to sit there on the internet and say, fuck, then I can say it. That's my First Amendment right. And, and this is the problem that we don't stand behind our Constitution anymore. We sit around and say, well, let the other guys take care of it. I'm sorry. I'm not the other guy. I have to take care of it. I have to say something. And either it's going to be this. You're either going to get off your ass and make something happen, or you can sit there and when it comes time and you get kicked in the teeth and then you want to start crying the blues, sorry about your luck. I ain't got no use for you.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, guys, too, out there. If they are allowed to make these changes to the Constitution and put in their amendments, they basically, I think it was quote unquote, Bush had said that the Constitution was only a piece of paper and that it doesn't apply to today's situations in real life. Well, if they could strike this one out, guys, next they're going to strike it all out. They're just going to say, piece of paper means nothing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I also found another story on there. It says, for 3 decades, the story of gun control was one of the most notorious crimes of laws passed in response in the beginning of the federal law that followed in the assassinations of Robert F. Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King in 1968, but after the Democratic-controlled Congress in 1994 passed bills proposed by Bill Clinton to restrict certain kinds of assault weapons and create national systems of background checks for gun purchases, the political pendulum began to swing the other way. President Bush's defeat of Al Gore in 2000 presidential election was attributed in part to the perception among gun owners that Mr. Gore was an anti-gun. Supporters of the gun control regularly point out the powerful national rifle associations, whose 4.3 million members, to make it one of the most effective advocacy groups in Washington. That number has grown quite a bit. In fact, 1 million of it should be in Florida, because I'd like to believe that of the 1 million concealed weapons permit holders are NRA members too. I would like to believe that because I don't know an NRA instructor that doesn't say, please sign up for this, you know? Wow. So in 2008, the Supreme Court ruled that the Bill of Rights included a guarantee of the personal right to own a gun. And the decision was both measure of how far the pro-gun debate had moved and to blow the many of the stricter gun control laws adopted by the cities of the Washington and Chicago. In the recent years, there have been calls for action on gun violence as of serious, horrific mass shootings. But the bills that were introduced, including one of the restrictive sales of 100 bullet magazines or to tighten the background checks, went nowhere. Now they're not. You know, so the tragic school shootings catalyst for change. In December of 2012, a ton of gun control debate seemed to be shifting to a heavily armed gunman forced his way into the elementary school. God bless. And as the country absorbed the news of yet another mass shooting, the support of stricter gun laws gained some hope in the tragedy that might catalyst for change. So on December 16th, speaking the memorial service of a bereaved Connecticut town, President Obama said that the nation had done enough to protect its. Obama said that the nation had not done enough to protect the children from these attacks. So, like in the beginning, that's what we were focused on. And so, how did we get so far away from it? You know.
No.
And then he hinted at fresh efforts to limit gun access, and he declared that there was no excuse for this inaction. So. We see. So the gun on plan, Obama gives Congress the plan on gun control. Boy, it likes to skip, doesn't it? So 3 days later, Mr. Obama said that he would submit a broad new gun control proposals to Congress. That was those 23 that I listed out. No later than January, well, he was a little late, and then would commit the power of his office of overcoming political opposition to the wake of our school massacre. So the president's pledge came as a key House Republicans restated their firm opposition, enhancing any new limits on firearms or ammunition, setting up the possibility of the philosophical clash over the Second Amendment early in Mr. Obama's second term.
Now, you want to hear something funny about that?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize this, but if anybody wants to go back and look, during Obama, when he first ran in his first term, when he was appointed by Ted Kennedy, the next day, Ted Kennedy and Barack Obama went down to go in there and file measures to sit there and put on law that the Second Amendment should be changed to where it's law enforcement and military personnel only.
Oh, this was even said on C-SPAN a couple of days ago, where they did a breakdown of the Second Amendment, and that it was basically military, and then they were trying to say, back then it was every man was part of the militia and things like that. It's getting so unbelievably twisted. It just really is. So during this appearance at the White House briefing room, the president said that he had directed the Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. to lead the well, I can't read that word. Isn't that funny? Interagency effort to develop the next several weeks of what the White House would say that was a multifaceted approach to the prevention of similar mass shootings and many other gun deaths that occur each year. But they're also compounding. That was another thing that I saw on there. They're compounding all the incidents, whether it be self-defense or a murder.
No.
So.
Yeah, the media's actual facts are quite a bit off. Not to mention the fact that
Piers Morgan's are probably the most farthest off that I've ever even heard of, and that's also on there.
Yeah,
too.
they had somebody, I forget who it was, that said about Piers Morgan. They said you need to take your British ass back to England and stay over there.
That was Dan Scott that sat here and said that right on our last show. The guy in the middle. By the way, that was a great show, and a lot of people were confused on how that show went. If you go back to www.talkwad.com, that's the Talkwad show that hosts all of this, you have to go under Amendment 1, or you can go from the Talkwad Network to the political button, to Firearms Talk, to past shows. Because there's two parts to that show because I crashed it. So a lot of people caught the second half of it, but they didn't catch the first half of it.
No.
So, guys, that actually was probably one of my best shows. I really, really enjoyed that. I reviewed it. So you actually have to watch part 1 and part 2 of last week's show. That was actually excellent. And we actually had our first-time caller that had actually called all the way out from Jacksonville. So I was really proud to see that we're starting to reach out to a lot a broader audience. So that the studio call-in number is 727-597-4022. Now I realize it's late at night, so if you guys don't want to call, that's okay. But I do host this show live, like I am doing tonight. It's just at a later time. Normally at Thursdays at 4:30 is when the show goes on, and then Gerald Markham's show comes on shortly after mine at what
6:30 to 7:30.
6:30 to 7:30 on Thursdays. So I just wanted to clarify that. So then there's some more articles that I wanted to read. In other responses to the killings, other concrete responses began emerging the week after the massacre that the state leaders proposed measuring the curb gun violence, and corporations distanced themselves from the event of the traumatized of the nation. In California, Democratic leaders introduced legislation that would mandate background checks on and for one-year permits for anyone who wanted to buy ammunition there. And in Michigan, a Republican governor voted legislation that would have permitted concealed weapons permits in school. Concealed weapons in schools, and private equity company announced that it would sell off the company that made high-powered assault rifles used in the Newton shootings. We need to get a clearer definition of what an assault rifle is. Okay, they are seeming to get this mixed up. I believe it was on my second or third show we clarified Class 3 firearms. We read it. It was like a 4-part show of clarifying it. Nowhere did it ever define an AR-15 of the civilian level was an assault rifle. They're getting this all mixed up.
Yeah, now they're saying that if you put a pistol grip on it, it's an assault rifle.
Yeah, they're changing it. There are shotguns that I have that have pistol grips. So it's all in how they choose to. They're talking about the furniture on it and all of this. It is still a single fire. It's not necessarily any more high-powered. In fact, I think a 308 is far more high-powered than that. A 30-06, a 7mm, 8mm, those are far more high-powered than a 223, which is also known, the other caliber is a 5.56. Okay. And another thing I really, really wanted to clarify, because I saw so much on C-SPAN that just almost made me want to puke. There was a lady on there that had mentioned a story, and God bless, she was just misinformed. She did not understand. So I can't be mad at her because of her ignorance. And I often have stated in many of my shows, too, that there's two situations that we have going on here. We have carelessness and ignorance, okay?
Yep.
Carelessness is you have the knowledge of, and you just choose not to use it. And then ignorance is you simply just don't know any better,
Nope.
okay? And this falls down to the difference between hollow point and ball ammunition. So there was a lot of people up there that were screaming about, we need to ban hollow point ammunition. On the contrary, hollow point ammunition, in my opinion, and it is fact, it's designed to stop upon impact. It is actually a safer round to shoot in self-defense because it doesn't go through and through. Okay, it's designed to shoot the bad guy. Okay, and so if you go through all of the thing that law-abiding citizens do when they go to get their concealed weapons permits, or even just to obtain a firearm in some states, you have to go through a gun safety course. We know this because we've been taught that, okay? And then we practice regularly, like we all should do, that the first few shots should be effective, okay? Sometimes adrenaline gets in the way, and you may shoot off a few more than that. We can't predict how each situation's going to go, but in self-defense, our ideal idea is to stop the threat, okay? So that's where hollow points are used. Number two, hollow points are about $1 a round, okay? So they're too expensive. She made it sound like it was just this horrible thing that needed to be taken off the streets, and it's just because they don't know any better. Ball ammunition, to me, is probably more destructive than hollow point in a sense that it will go through and through and through and through. It's just not, the lack of knowledge of. So, how far did I read? I got all the way down to here?
Yep.
Okay, so not all responses pointed to stricter gun controls in Ohio. Governor John R. Kasich, a Republican, announced that he would sign a legislation that would allow people to keep their guns in their cars, in the State House garage, and make it easier to renew their licenses and carry concealed weapons.
Yep.
Freaking awesome.
There's about 7 states right now that are going totally against it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these guys are great. Texas, you got to love Texas. Them crazy bastards over there. Hey, they've already sat there and said to all the people in New York that's getting their rights taken away, they said, come on down to Texas. We've got better jobs. We got no state taxes, and you can make money. That way, the more money that you make, the more ammunition you can buy.
That's right. You know what? And you do this state side by side. Texas is the one biggest state in the whole United States and has far few crimes compared to New York.
Yep, that's a fact. That's because, you know why? Because they all carry guns.
They're armed.
Yeah.
I don't know of any robber that wants to rob somebody. I saw a picture on Facebook, which was freaking awesome. They had a picture of this grandma in the grocery store with her open carry. There's a lot of states that do open carry.
Yep.
And it said, would you rob this lady? I wouldn't want to take my chances on that, you know?
I mean, hey, man, she might have been one of them old bats, that was like quick draw, it's just like 2 seconds, she got you. Yeah, buddy. Yep.
On Capitol Hill, some congressional Republicans were cautiously supportive of the idea of exploring new gun policies. Senator John McCain of Arizona said that he would not outright reject the notion of limitations or bans on certain types of guns or ammunition, but rejected the idea raised by some Republicans that it would soon, too, be debating over legislative remedies. However, the key House Republicans restarted their firm opposition in enacting any new limits on firearms or ammunition, and Representative Bob Goodlatte, a Republican for the Virginia and incoming chairman of the House of Judiciary Committee,
Judiciary
Committee, said that on December 18th that he had no interest in moving any sort of gun control legislation through the chamber. Representative Howard Cobble of the North Carolina said that in the interview he thought that the talk of gun control was probably a rush to judgment.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and that he missed the real issue. I think it is more on mental health problems than a gun problem right now, he said.
Yep.
So, beautiful thing. So, what's up?
3 minutes.
Oh, wow. It went that quick. Down to 3 minutes. Wow. So there's so much going on. There's so much to be continued. I have a lot more guests that are interested in becoming on our show. And so I definitely, guys, I want you to stay tuned. All of this couldn't be possible without the Talkwad Radio Network. Certainly, if I can be a talk show radio host, you guys can too. So you guys need to call and, come up with your own show. Come on in here, get the support you need. And, you guys can do it too. We need to have voice out there. So the call-in number to do either way, you could call in 727-597-4022, or you can go to the Talkwad Radio Network, which is at www.talkwad.com. That's TALKWAD.com.
Yep.
And there's actually even an application on there. So if you check that out, you can actually, put an application. We also have 2 locations, which is really awesome. We have a location here in Clearwater, which is on the corner of US 19, just south of Curlew, kind of by that bar called Freaky Piggies.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so right on that
Chili Bowl or something. Skyline Chili.
Oh, yeah, okay. So right over there is the 5-story building, so you guys can come out there and do that. Or you can go to our Tampa location, which is brand new, and I got to check it out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It looks nice in there. It really does. I almost thought, should I transfer there or stay here? Transfer there or stay here? So, beautiful location there in Tampa, and that's right on the corner of Linebaugh and Dale Mabry, right behind the Starbucks there. So there's a nice set of buildings out there, and pretty awesome. So I also wanted to thank Adam Krakowias for staying so late. I know he was wanting to leave. I wanted to thank him for letting me be able to broadcast tonight. And he is also the host of nerdcore.com. So that's on Sundays at 11 p.m. You got any final parting words?
Just make sure you get you a gun trust, buy lots of guns, buy lots of ammunition. Go ahead and get rid of everything you can right now, because pretty soon, if we don't make a change, you won't be able to.
Yeah. And, I strongly, I can't tell you enough times, please join the NRA. Make your voice be heard. Let's not be small people. Let's not be sheeple out there, okay? Make your voice heard.
That's a fact.
Fact. All righty, guys. You have a wonderful night out there.
Take care. See you next week. Same time, same channel.
To follow that star. no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause.